Let's take a look at some charts on the basic attention token BAT from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So BAT is a utility token used in the Brave browser. Brave is founded by Brandon Ike, co-founder of Mozilla and Firefox. The browsers look similar. The idea behind BAT is that you pay creators directly for their content, available on various platforms, including YouTube. You can set it to autopay based on how many minutes you spend on certain pages or certain videos, or you can just pay someone directly for their content. They also have trading through Binance. They have integration with Gemini as well, I think. So they're full crypto as far as the browser is concerned. When you're building a network, it's important to look at the nodes of the network, including, in this case, are people using it? Are their publishers registered? And the publishers are now currently at 1 million registered, which there are several duplicates in there. Obviously, if you have an account on YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, that's all the same person. But nonetheless, 1 million registered accounts, most of which on YouTube, Twitter, and Vimeo. And if we look at these graphs, they're definitely impressive. The total number of publishers has continued to increase on all platforms over the past few years, really with no stopping or slowing whatsoever. Bit of an S-curve of adoption here going on Twitch. So I think video platforms in general are the most attractive for this sort of thing, but BAT can act as a replacement for any ad-based revenue. If we look at the token itself, we have transaction counts and mean transaction sizes. Now you can see here the weekly or monthly distributions to publishers from Brave. You can see when the subsidy to publishers sort of ended in early 2021. You can see when ETH fees sort of rocked the transaction counts for this. So originally they said they made BAT an ERC20 because BTC transaction fees were too expensive, and here we are several years later and transaction fees on ETH are now quite expensive. The true underlying story of all this is, of course, nothing can scale at the moment for the most part, and if it's popular enough, it will see crippling fees unless something's done about it. So they're sort of stuck here unless they transition to another chain. They kind of have to eat the fees or figure out how the network's going to survive with ETH fees, what they are, either by off-chain means or layer 2 means, that sort of thing. Mean transaction sizes are way up, probably as a response to ETH fees. If fees go up, you typically see less transactions and bigger transaction sizes. Here's NVT, inverse metric of economic utility, and active addresses. Active addresses dropped way off over the past few months. Not a bullish sign for the token, and it's difficult to think of the token and the browser as two separate things, but they are. The token itself, in my opinion, should be a stable coin anyway and doesn't really need a variable value, a market rate, if you will. So maybe that's the end game for them. They just transition to USDC and call it a day. But nonetheless, active addresses are way down. Since mid last year, NVT is trending down, has been trending down for the past few years. It's difficult to apply NVT to something like BAT, which is a pre-mine or any pre-mine, because if BAT is moved on-chain by the Brave team, for example, that's included in this, and that will artificially bring NVT lower than it would be if you're just looking at organic sort of peer-to-peer activity. You see custody stuff in here, and it sort of messes up the metric. If we look at Google Trends for basic attention token, those 3 words, you get this graph, and it looks rather unimpressive as far as total relative popularity of searches over the past few years. It is rising over the past few weeks and kind of at a multi-month high, but it's nothing too exciting when you compare it to everything else right now, or most other coins right now, where they are pushing all-time highs on Google Trends, which historically for any coin is bullish. It just means more users, new people onboarding, that sort of thing. If you look at the Brave browser, though, extremely popular, continues to be in the mix of browsers that are commonly used. So the browser itself is rather popular. Let's look at some technicals for the token. Yearly pivots, new yearly pivots for 2021. VPVR, volume profile of the visible range. volume, RSI, 50, 200, EMAs. I zoomed way out. This is the 3-day chart. This has data back from 2018 just to show how range bound this has been over the past 3 years plus at this point. So in a vacuum, if something is range bound like this, I don't expect massive moves in either direction. One way to trade this would be to buy the lows and sell the highs, similar to Dogecoin. This is the USD chart. The BTC chart's going to look a lot different. I'll show that in a second. We are getting a golden cross of sorts on the 50 and the 200 period EMAs here. It's above the yearly pivot. It's above VPVR resistance, but ultimately it's uninteresting to me until it's basically above the R1, which is a multi-year range high somewhere around 40 cents. Volume's curling up slightly and is at a multi-month range high. You could argue for some sort of monstrous looking inverted head and shoulders here with a neckline somewhere around 30 cents. So we'll see. This isn't a trade for me from 30 cents to 40 cents. Maybe it's a trade for me above 40 cents on no bull or bear divs on RSI to really speak of. As far as support, tons of support at the yearly pivot, obviously at the 200 period moving average here, and all this VPVR stuff. So most of the history for the volume has been between 18 cents and 25 cents. Just another way to measure that range. Looking at the daily cloud, it's actually starting to want to peak above the daily cloud for the first time since mid last year when it had that bullish Kumo breakout. So this is a little bit more evidence that this move has some legs in it potentially over the next few months, leading into Q2 when alts do well in general. But again, what's your upside here? 40 cents, downside 18 cents. Your better entries are lower, obviously, at around 25 cents. So, again, this isn't really a trade for me, but I know people trade it. That's why I cover this coin and these technicals. Here's the impressive chart of BAT BTC, daily Binance. So first thing you'll notice is the massive VPVR resistance from the previous range of 2100 sats to 3K sats. So no matter what happens in the future, price will acknowledge this level and it will likely consolidate for a considerable amount of time before moving higher. The BTC chart has basically had two ranges, one between 3K sats and 5K sats, another between 2K sats and 3K sats. Right now it's still in the throes of a bearish trend below the cloud, below the 200, far below the yearly pivot. It does have a bullish divergence here that's leaning towards bullish reversal here on the trend. So it is reasonable to want to expect some sort of mean reversion to 1700 sats to 2K sats. Anything between the 200-day moving average, the yearly pivot, and this VPVR resistance certainly possible. And to see this coupled with the bullish Kumo breakout potentially on the daily does look decent for a play, again, into Q2 when alts do the best. So overall, Brave, the browser, amazing. BAT, the token, probably should have been a stable coin all along. They're having difficulty, based on my read, based on the on-chain data, dealing with the high Ethereum fees right now. I can't, let's say there's somebody like me who's got coins on Uphold, which is this site that Brave makes you use to confirm your KYC AML stuff. I cannot actually move my BAT off that site without paying the entirety of the BAT balance on the site. So the transaction fees are just too great to even matter as far as what I'm receiving. That's just one example of the issue with BAT at the moment. So maybe in the background, they'll say that the token works because we can send it to people via Uphold or wherever, but ultimately those people cannot really remove it from those places without their transactions costing the entire amount or a large percentage of the amount. So it's just kind of stuck there. So the idea is great. I love the browser. People love the browser. It's very popular. The token itself looks a bit troublesome, even on technicals. It likely remains range bound. Until it's above 40 cents, it's not likely to make some massive bull run back to $1 or something. There's a lot of tokens out there, which is another issue I mentioned in the bottom of the article. It's going to have a hard time overcoming just the sell pressure unless this thing gets really popular. And on the BTC pair, it's obviously just been, over the past year and a half, 2 years, just nothing but bearishness, really, despite an attempt at bullishness throughout mid-2019 and mid-2020.